Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. So today's video is going to be a little different. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my theories on the movie Coraline, what I think happened, some things that I've noticed, and some questions that I want to pose to you Coraline fan theorists. So yes, this is a Coraline fan theory video, not just an art video. So if you clicked on this video hoping for Coraline theories, you are going to get that. But if you clicked on this video hoping for an art video, there is a painting that I am going to be doing in the background, and there's going to be 4 of these videos, and all these pieces are actually inspired by Coraline. So it's a bit of both. Regardless, I hope you still enjoy it. So the formatting for this video is also going to be a little different. Normally, I don't go into my videos with a script. I normally just talk about the things that I thought or the things that I had experienced when I'm doing a voiceover. But this time I have written out a bit of a loose script. So I guess we'll see how this goes. I have sort of laid out what I want to talk about in each video. Like I said, there's going to be 4 of these, so I spread out the topics a little bit. So in this first video, the main thing I plan on talking about is Wipey's grandma and her parents, the garden, and also I have a question posed at the end of this video that sort of bleeds into the next one. In the next video, I'm going to talk all about the other mother, my theories on her, how I think her mindset works, and who I think she is as a person. In the third video, I'm going to talk about Coraline's gloves and her parents being taken. And in the fourth video, I'm going to be talking about whether or not Coraline escaped and is actually in the real world or not. And also, I'm going to take a step back and view the movie and book from the mindset of a creator and the conclusion that I come to from doing that, as well as some finalization thoughts on the movie and the conclusion of the story. So that's a rough outline on the main topics I will be talking about in all 4 of these videos, but I do go into depth about some other things that I have noticed and some questions that I have that I haven't exactly been able to answer. So while I will be talking about those things, it's really just to give you a loose idea of the main topics. But yes, there will be more to those videos than just the things that I have mentioned here. So I just want to take a quick second to address the artwork in this video for all my art viewers and for all of you who came here for an art video. The piece that I'm doing in the background is a piece that I actually made years ago and painted years ago. I made these pieces with the intention to make Coraline theorizing videos with them, but I just didn't really know what I was doing at the time, and I was very insecure about scripting and voiceover and things like that. So that's why it took so long to get these videos out, and that is why these pieces are so old. So while these aren't too reflective of my current work or current process, I am still somewhat proud of them. There are things that I would change about them today, and I was actually thinking if I come up with more Coraline theories, maybe I'll do like a redo of a couple of my favorites that I've done from this Coraline series and make more Coraline theorizing videos. Maybe. I have no idea if that's actually going to happen or not. I'm just saying. So these pieces are inspired by Coraline, and I used vibes and things that I noticed from the movie in order to give that effect. So yeah, that's the piece that I'm doing, and that's what you'll be watching. So let's get started with the Coraline theorizing. I said that the first thing I wanted to talk about was the grandma, because in other Coraline theorizing videos that I've seen and listened to and watched, a lot of people seem to think that the grandma is a bad person and that she offered up Coraline as a sacrificial lamb to save her own grandson. And I don't agree with this. I think that the grandma felt that Coraline was safe, and I'm going to explain how I think this. Before Coraline ever came to the home, the grandma who had rented out the place to previous tenants always had the rule that there were no children allowed. She kept that rule for a while. The reason I think she changed it is because she found the doll that her sister had, and from her perspective, her twin sister suddenly found this doll, became attached to it, and then disappeared. So she knew the doll was something bad and had something to do with her sister's disappearance. I think she wasn't able to find this doll until her later years of life before Coraline moved into the Pink Palace, and that is the reason she never allowed children in the Pink Palace to begin with. Because she couldn't find this doll and she didn't want any other children to be taken. So she never allowed children in the Pink Palace until she had this doll in her possession, thinking that it was the main reason her sister disappeared. And when she took it away, she lifted the rule, thinking that children would now be safe in the Pink Palace. The evidence I have to support this theory is that the grandma locked the doll away in a trunk in her own home. Coraline ended up getting it because YB decided to snoop around and found the doll, and because it looked like Coraline, he decided to send it to her. And then we find out later in the movie that the grandma was extremely mad at this, and YB was sent to get the doll back from her. This also proves that she's not a bad person because she went to go and check to make sure that the doll was still in her possession, and that's how she found out that it was missing. If she truly didn't care, she wouldn't have bothered to check. Which also proves this is a point of anxiety for her. She needed to check on the doll to make sure it was still there. If she had true faith that it would stay there and there wasn't anything more to it, that it was just a doll, then why would you need to check it? So she knows there's something more to this doll, and that's why she went to make sure it was still there in her trunk. More evidence I have to support this theory is that when Coraline is exploring the Pink Palace and then finds the small door, the door is covered up by wallpaper. Mel, her mother, has to cut it open. I think the grandma covered up the door in hopes that no one would notice it. And a bit of a point to her on this part, because Coraline didn't notice it. She didn't notice the little door until the doll was positioned there, and she saw it. So when Coraline first entered the drawing room, she didn't even see the door. It was the doll that made her notice the door. So her plan in that regard was right. And it worked. And if it hadn't been for the doll, Coraline would have been safe. She never would have noticed it. A big point on this, however, that people like to assume that she's bad is the fact that she left the key in the house to begin with. But I think that the key can move around sort of like how the doll can. It can disappear and reappear as it pleases. Also, a good point to note would be that did she even know the key was something of significance to start with? If it doesn't disappear and reappear on its own and she knew about it all along, all the grandma knows is that the doll and the door had something to do with her sister's disappearance, not really knowing about the key. So even if it doesn't disappear and reappear on its own, I don't think she would see a reason to take it in the first place. Assuming that she lacked the knowledge on what it was for. Now let's take a second to view this from the grandma's perspective and give her some slack here. Would getting rid of the doll completely stop the beldam from knowing about Coraline being in the house, and would covering up the door stop Coraline from going through it? No, but she's working off of more limited knowledge than we have. She doesn't know that the mice are the ones who talk to the beldam and tell her when someone new has entered the house. She doesn't know that there are other portals on her property. She doesn't know about all this, and these are crucial pieces of information to have. And so because she doesn't know about all this, she thought that the doll was really the only thing of significance for the reason her sister disappeared or was stolen. So that's my theory on the grandma. I don't think she's a bad person, and I don't think she meant to sacrifice Coraline, and I don't think she planned to in order to save her grandson. I think that she found the doll, and because she thinks that doll is one of the main reasons her sister disappeared, when she was able to find it, she took it, thinking that children would now be safe in the Pink Palace, once again not knowing about the mice or about the other portals. So now I want to talk about Coraline's parents and a couple of things that I noticed about them, and also just a couple questions that I have about them. So my first question that I actually still don't have an answer to is, why are her parents' jobs so unique and specific? Why garden catalogers? Why did they choose these jobs for the parents? I can see why choosing jobs where you'd have to work from home would be necessary for the story, for Coraline to feel neglected and ignored. But why specifically garden catalogers? Why not have them be writers or something like that? So I don't have an answer to this question. If you guys can think of something, please leave it in the comments. Another question I have that I don't have the answer to, it's a bit of a silly one, but might hold some weight, and that is, does the mom's accident have more significance than we give it? It's only ever mentioned once in the movie, but because everything in the movie is so intentional, I'm wondering if there's more meaning to her mom having been in an accident than we think there is. So once again, I don't have an answer for this question. If you think you might have an answer or you've come up with something, please, again, leave it in the comments. I'd be happy to hear it. So another thing with the parents is having to do with the garden. I was wondering, what is the significance of the garden? Does the parents not gardening represent a broken promise to Coraline? And then I started to wonder, are the gardens in both worlds a metaphor for Coraline's care? Like how in the real world, in the beginning of the movie, the garden is neglected, just like how Coraline feels. How her parents aren't paying any attention to her, and how they don't seem to have time for her. Whereas by the end, in the real world, the garden is tended to and cared for like how Coraline is. So now I'm going to talk about some points in the story that I have noticed, some questions that I have about them, and talk about some notable things. So one of my bigger questions in this movie is about the food in the other worlds, and I haven't seen too many people touch on this topic, and I feel like it really needs to be talked about. What is the food? Like, what is it? We all know that everything in the other world is not what it appears to be. Everything is made out of something else. So what is the food made out of? And it's really freaky to think about what it could be, because my first thought goes to bugs. And maybe like dead things. Because there's no way that the mice can bring the other mother a whole raw chicken to cook in the other world in order to feed it to Coraline. That's just not something that's possible, which means all of the food that Coraline eats in the other world is disguised as something else. So what could it possibly be that she's eating? And it's really disturbing to think about, because everything in that world is a carcass or something dead of something else. Like, I don't have an answer to this. I really don't. Like I said, my best guess is that it's bugs or the carcasses of dead things. That's my best guess, and that's really gross to think about. That's really disgusting. But that's my best guess. Another point I want to make about the food is that it is constantly used as a lure and show of love. The other mother constantly uses food and the abundance of it in the other world to not only entice Coraline, but to show affection towards her. In my own culture, food has significance in this sense, and I feel like it does in a lot of people's cultures. You feed the people that you love, and you feed them to take care of them and to show that you love them. She also constantly feeds her things that any child would love to have on a daily basis. She doesn't feed her things of nutrition or things that are healthy. She feeds her treats that are only supposed to be given every once in a while. A perfect example of this is when she enters the other world and gets her outfit and sees the spread that's laid out for her. What's in that spread is things like cupcakes and hot dogs and junk food. All things that kids love but need to be eaten in moderation. So the other mother is just constantly giving her treats and more treats to show that she loves her. Because especially when you're a child, when you're given treats, it's a show in a child's mind as love and affection and care. So she is constantly and consistently giving Coraline treats to affirm to Coraline that she loves her. And it's also used as a manipulation tactic. She knows the food Coraline eats at home is not the stuff that she wants. Not only that, but she gives Coraline the junk food she would want in abundance, in too much abundance, to show how much that there is there. The amount of food that the other mother gives Coraline each time she feeds her is beyond what any child could eat. But she does it this way to show that there is more here, and that there's a lot here for you. That's the kind of message I think she's trying to send to Coraline, is that there's always going to be a lot here. So yeah, I personally think that the food has a lot of significance in the story for manipulation-wise, and also in telling the story of intentions. But as far as what the food is, like I said, I have no idea what it could be. And I would love to hear your thoughts on what it could be. Do you also think that it could be bugs, or do you think it's something else that she disguised as food? I would love to hear what you think. Something of quick note that I want to put here is something that has bothered me about the movie that I don't exactly understand. And that is the significance of Coraline's hat, that military hat that she puts on before she goes into Spink and Forcible's house. What is the purpose of that hat? What's the significance of it? I don't understand what part it plays in the story. So if you know about it and what it could mean, please leave it in the comments, because I really don't know, and I don't think that the hat is ever mentioned in the book. I noticed some important distinctions used in the language of this movie, so I'm going to point them out. An important distinction Coraline always makes is that she always calls the other mother, other mother. She never calls her other mom or just mom. To me, that's an important distinction, because when you call someone mother, there's a certain detachment from it, as well as father, instead of mom and dad. That implies a bit of a closer relationship rather than just saying mother and father. So to me, that seemed like an important distinction. Another important one that I noticed was the use of the word stolen instead of kidnapped when they're talking about YB's grandma's twin sister. They always use the word stolen and never kidnapped, possibly in reference to stole their souls, but I just thought that that was interesting wording to use. Another one is that the cat never refers to the other mother as the other mother or the beldam. He only ever calls her her. He never refers to her by name or by title. It's always just her. That's how he refers to her. And I just thought that was kind of interesting how he doesn't really label the beldam. So that's going to be it for this video. Like I said, in the next one, I'm going to be talking all about the other mother, and there is a lot that I have written down about her and what I think about her, and just everything that goes along with her. So it's going to go pretty much through the whole movie of her appearance, and just the things that I have noticed, the theories that I have come up with. So that's what the next video is going to be. But that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it answered some questions for you and posed some new questions for you. And if you can come up with an answer to any of the questions that I asked, feel free to leave it in the comments, because I'd love to hear what other people think about it. And if you have different opinions on the theories that I came up with, feel free to tell me those as well. that's it for this video. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!